Bullying is an education problem. Bullying creates an environment of fear among our students. We can experience a lot of dropouts. Some students are not comfortable going to school and they don't concentrate. And hence, we see a lot of low scores.
Yung po siguro physical bullying, para po sa akin, kayang i-handle yun. Ang hindi po kayang i-handle yung mental, kasi yun po ang mabigat. Para sa akin ngayon, yun po ang nararanasan ng ating mga kabataan, yung mental torture. Yung physical torture, sorry po pero para sa akin, nakatulong pa yun eh.
From the nation's capital, all sides, all the time, I'm Robbie Alampay.
And I'm Gretchen Ho. The big story tonight.
Senators expressed concern over the Philippines being worse off than at least 70 other countries in terms of bullying incidents.
The Education Department also reveals bullying cases have continued to climb over the past 7 years, even with the implementation of the Anti-Bullying Act. Arian Kalumbiran with the big story.
Data from the Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, shows that up to 6 out of 10 Filipino children aged 13 to 17 years old experience bullying. This places the Philippines the highest in bullying incidents out of over 70 countries. This disturbing information was brought up by senators during their inquiry into the implementation of the Anti-Bullying Act.
This is quite worrisome when it comes to reading, math, and science. We're second to the last. But when it comes to bullying, we're number one across 70-plus countries.
Senator Win Gatchalian, who chairs the Committee on Public Education, stresses that bullying is a huge issue in the education sector and that this must be addressed if the country wants to address learner performance.
We also need to make sure that the school environment is safe. Bullying creates an environment of fear among our students.
But what's more worrying is that ever since the Anti-Bullying Act was passed in 2013, bullying incidents climbed further. That's according to data from the Education Department. The highest count was recorded in 2018 to 2019 with over 21,500. This went down to around 11,600 in 2020 when classes shifted to online learning. DepEd says there could have also been possible underreporting due to the pandemic. Gatchalian says some 17.5 million students may have been bullied across the Philippines, way higher than what was recorded by DepEd.
This is the reason why we wanted to create new avenues for them to directly report, hoping that we'll be able to establish regional hubs for direct reporting to the regions and immediate action.
Senators say the Education Department must work on improving its capacity to gather reports on bullying. Aside from physical harm, experts also noted that bullying affects the mental health of learners. Aside from supporting the victims, experts add that education authorities must also look into the situation of the bullies as they may have also been experiencing violence at home.
And most of the perpetrators in that physical violence are family members. We know that that behavior reflects what this bully is already experiencing at home.
Arian Kalumbiran, We Are One News.
The Philippine Coast Guard says a China Coast Guard vessel blocked and then directed a military-grade laser at a Philippine vessel on a resupply mission last week.
With tensions in the West Philippine Sea becoming more intense, President Bongbong Marcos may consider signing a visiting forces agreement with Japan. Mon Gualvez with a report.
In this video of the Philippine Coast Guard on February 6, passengers of the BRP Malapascua captured a ship with a small green colored light. But after just a few seconds, the small green light turned out to be a laser that was pointed at the vessel. The Philippine Coast Guard learned that the ship of the Chinese Coast Guard with bow number 5205 was using a laser light on the BRP Malapascua. They believe that the Chinese Coast Guard used a military-grade laser beam which could blind someone if it hits them directly in the eyes.
Kung sakaling ma-establish na ginamitan tayo ng military-grade laser beam, ay hindi po ito maganda. Dahil po talaga pong halimbawa may effect sa ating mga tao, lalo na nasa bridge, kung nasaan nandun yung brain ng barko at pagpapatakbo, at na maaring ilagay dito sa panganib yung ating mga tauhan.
Due to the incident, the BRP Malapascua was forced not to proceed with the rotation and resupply or RORE mission to the BRP Sierra Madre. Instead, it headed directly to its next supply run to the BRP Teresa Magbanwa, located in the Calayan Islands in Palawan. In a statement, National Security Advisor Eduardo Año said the Philippine Coast Guard will continue to fulfill its duty to enforce all maritime laws of the Philippines and protect the sovereignty of the country in the West Philippine Sea. The PCG's mandate also includes ensuring the safety of our fishermen and supporting the resupply operations of the BRP Sierra Madre. Meanwhile, as the geopolitical climate continues to change in the Asia-Pacific region, President Bongbong Marcos said the Philippines may be inking a visiting forces agreement with Japan soon.
I think in general, if it will be of help to the Philippines in terms of protecting, for example, our fishermen, protecting our maritime territory, kung talagang makakatulong, I don't see why we shouldn't adopt it.
While open to strengthening security ties with Japan, Marcos expressed caution, saying he did not want the Philippines' efforts to appear provocative. For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
Meanwhile, the U.S. military shot down an unidentified object flying above Michigan on Sunday, making it the fourth airborne object downed by American forces in just over a week. U.S. defense officials said they are still trying to establish the nature of these objects. Prior to this latest incident, U.S. President Joe Biden recently ordered an unidentified flying object near Dead Horse, Alaska to be taken down. Another object was also shot down after being seen in the Yukon Territory of Canada. U.S. Air Force General Glenn Van Herk told reporters that the military has not been able to identify any of the three objects shot down since the destruction of the Chinese balloon. Van Herk said officials don't yet know how they stay aloft or where they are coming from.
We're not going to categorize them as balloons. We're calling them objects for a reason. Not able to categorize how they stay aloft. It could be a gaseous type of balloon inside a structure, or it could be some type of a propulsion system. That's why it's so critical to get our hands on these so that we can further assess and analyze what they are.
In other news, the Justice Department wants changes on how preliminary investigations are done here in the country. Here's what we know. The DOJ issued circular number 008, which would raise the threshold for filing criminal cases in court. The circular calls on prosecutors to withdraw pending criminal cases that have no, quote, no reasonable certainty of conviction. This would be a departure from the standard practice in preliminary investigations of relying on probable cause. Under the rules of court, preliminary investigations only require well-founded belief that a crime has been committed and that the respondent is probably guilty thereof. This begs the question on whether the rules of criminal procedure should be amended first before the DOJ can impose such change in practice. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla says they are in constant dialogue with the Supreme Court over this matter. Last year, he had already expressed dismay over the low conviction rate in the Philippines at less than 25%. That already includes plea bargain arrangements. This is when the accused agrees to plead guilty to a lesser offense in exchange for a lighter penalty. Remulla said that amending Rule 112 on preliminary investigations would be a step forward towards improving the conviction rate in the country. Here to give us his insights on this matter, we have Integrated Bar of the Philippines President, Attorney Bert Estrada. Good evening, sir. Welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening po, Sir Robbie, and thank you for having me.
Sir, how would this affect yung mga kaso na inihahain kung essentially tinataas natin yung bar sa preliminary investigation from probable cause to what was it again, how it's phrased, with no certainty of conviction? Ano implications nito?
Well, to me, Sir Robbie, it would really help unclog the dockets of our courts because we have to remember the purpose of preliminary investigations is twofold po. No? Firstly, it's supposed to make sure that individuals, respondents being accused of committing an offense is not unduly burdened into going into trial if there is really no evidence against him or her. No? And secondly, to save the state from the expenses and all the manpower that it has to put into prosecuting cases if later on it will just prove that there was no evidence against the accused. And so this move, to me po, will help unclog the dockets of our courts, which are really, at this point in time, very much clogged na po.
Apa. Yung in terms of unclogging the dockets, I think that's pretty clear. But are we unclogging it with many potential unintended consequences? Primarily being that a lot of people who may warrant to be held can easily now get past the preliminary investigation stage. And does this not address the problem on the wrong side? Some people might argue that, therefore, to increase the certainty of conviction, then we just have to pour more resources and build more capacity in our Department of Justice.
I think it works that way po, Sir Robin. Before they file the case, then they have to really exhaust all effort and to make sure that they have turned all stones and look for all the evidence that are out there and to see if there is really enough evidence to engender a belief that a crime was committed and that the respondent is probably guilty of committing that crime. So the result is only that they should not unduly file cases and further clog the dockets of our court if they are not certain, as put by the circular, that they have not reached that so-called reasonable certainty of conviction before they file a case. And so you're correct po. It should also call for more support to our law enforcement, the investigating arms of our prosecution service, and to our Office of the National Prosecution Service, so that they can really gather evidence and exhaust all efforts before they really file cases in courts.
Okay, this change from probable cause to certainty of conviction, can you take us through that? What exactly would need to be met for you to file a case?
Well, this degree of, we call it as quantum of evidence. Previously po, Gretchen, the quantum of evidence in this preliminary investigation is what we call as probable cause, or with something which a reasonable mind, or that the mind of the prosecutor, there is enough evidence that would engender that belief that there is a crime that was committed and that the respondent is probably guilty. Mm-hmm. But this time, the circular calls for a higher quantum of evidence on the part of the prosecutor who is resolving this preliminary investigation. And so it should not be just mere probable cause. No? Probable cause is something that we could say it's higher than a mere suspicion, but it does not need to be beyond reasonable doubt, or there has to be moral certainty. If we say probably reasonable certainty of conviction, then it is something that is just below the quantum of evidence in convicting an accused, which is proof beyond reasonable doubt. So in this case, before they file a case, although they do not have sufficient evidence yet to say that there is proof beyond reasonable doubt, but that they should have at least a reasonable certainty of arriving at a conviction in the evidence that they have and will be presenting in court, and not just mere probable or probability of getting a conviction.
At attorney, to that point lang po, last question na lang po. Sabi nga po ni Justice Secretary Remulla, they are in constant consultation with the Supreme Court on this. That consultation notwithstanding, and we imagine that's very important, but notwithstanding the consultation, does the court actually have any say in this, or is this completely a prerogative under the Department of Justice?
With regards to the determination of probable cause, or what they call now reasonable certainty
Just to clarify, sir, not on the determination, but just on that decision that this is now the standard.
Yes po, because this is to me, I believe it is an exclusive, an executive decision. No? What evidence or degree of evidence they would want to have before they file a case, because that is the discretion that is afforded to our prosecutors in determining the sufficiency of evidence that they feel engenders the probability that the respondent committed the crime being accused of.
Okay. Attorney Estrada, maraming salamat po. Attorney Bert Estrada is President of the Integrated Bar of the Philippines.
Right after the break, search, rescue, and relief efforts continue in quake-hit Turkey and Syria. We'll be having Mr. Angelo Mangawang of the Philippine contingent in Turkey to give us updates. That and more when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News. You're watching the big story here on One News. 1 week after the devastating earthquake hit Turkey and Syria, search and rescue teams are still rushing to save victims that could be alive under the rubble. Here's what we know. As more and more bodies are found in the rubble, latest data says that the quakes have killed at least 29,600 people in Turkey and more than 4,500 in Syria. 2 of these deaths are Filipinos. Rescue teams from different nations, including the Philippines, have arrived since last week to offer aid and other assistance that they may offer. Now, the Office of Civil Defense and the Philippine Interagency Humanitarian Contingent in Turkey has already set up its field hospital and base camp as of February 11. The Philippine contingency has been conducting hasty search operations in the southeastern city of Adiyaman, where they are expected to stay for 2 weeks. The Philippine government, through the House of Representatives, is set to donate $100,000 in financial assistance to the victims of the recent earthquake in Turkey. House Speaker Martin Romualdez said he was sincerely grateful to Turkey for helping Leyte and many parts of eastern Samar in November 2013. Romualdez said that his office will turn over the financial aid to Turkey's ambassador to the Philippines. Meanwhile, the Philippine Embassy in Turkey is preparing the repatriation of the remains of Wilma Abulad Tezcan, one of the 2 Filipinos who died following the 7.8 magnitude earthquake. The embassy said that this is upon the request of Tezcan's family. It added that the other Filipino fatality is married to a Turk, so her family in the Philippines is seeking consent from her husband regarding the treatment of her human remains.
Here to give us the latest on the Philippine contingency's operations in Turkey, that's the country still that many people refer to as Turkey. We have with us Angelo Mangawang, Liaison and Logistics Officer of the Philippine Interagency Humanitarian Contingent in Turkey. Good evening and welcome to the Big Story, sir.
Good evening, Sir Roby and Ms. Gretchen. Good afternoon po from Turkey. Good afternoon po sa lahat po ng viewers natin. Hello po.
Magandang araw po sa inyo dyan. Tell us first, your impression of the situation on the ground.
Yes, sir. 1 week after the earthquake happened po, much have transpired and occurred. Mostly po, yung locals po natin have conducted their own rescue operations po and debris clearing, while international humanitarian organizations po and the international community itself provided assistance through the deployment of their search and rescue teams and medical personnel po on the ground. As you can see on the situation po, many buildings have collapsed from low to high-rise buildings po. In our site po, dito po sa Adiyaman, mostly residential po. So we are expecting more casualties to come up. Hopefully po, meron pa po tayong mga alive victims po na makuha po sa rubble po.
Tell us about your contingent, the Philippine contingent. Ano po bang mga capacity ang dala natin dyan? Talk about our people there and maybe briefly yung experience din na dala-dala natin dyan.
Yes po. The Philippine Interagency Humanitarian Contingent po is composed of 2 main bodies. First po is our Philippine Urban Search and Rescue Team po, composed of the Philippine Air Force, Philippine Army, the Metropolitan Development Authority, the Subic Bay Metropolitan Authority. Then we have our Philippine Emergency Medical Assistance Team, led po by the Department of Health. They are the ones providing medical assistance po to the victims of the calamity po and providing medical services po to those Turkish citizens po na nangangailangan ng immediate care po. With the experience po, they have been performing such tasks po since early, decades na po kasi po they are very tenured po with their craft. They are experts po and they are very well trained po in both search and rescue and retrieval operations as well as the emergency medical management po. So our team po is very competent po with regards po to emergency situations po.
Hey, Sir Angelo, can you give us an update with the rescue operations? How many exactly have you found underneath the rubble and how difficult it is now? It has been 1 week since the quake. What is the hope there now on ground?
Yes. Actually po, since yesterday po, the team was able to assess and triage 20 buildings po in Adiyaman. When we say triage po, the teams are conducting search operations using different methodologies and tools, and with skills po na accompanied by it, they are performing these operations po to check if there are signs of life in this rubble po. As of now po, they are conducting the inspection at the field po, and an update po, just a few nights ago po, meron po tayo kinandak po na search operations na umabot po hanggang madaling araw kasi po they are trying to detect if the one casualty in Adiyaman still alive. So umabot po tayo at least 2 a.m. po na nagkandak pa rin sila ng search operations. Nagkandak na sila ng breaching dun sa rubble. Pinutas na nila yung pader tsaka yung sahig. Tapos ngayon po tinuloy pa nila. Then other buildings po, aside that, binalikan po ng team natin ngayon. Kasi po, despite po 1 week na yung nakalipas, we are still hoping po na meron pa tayong makikitang alive po na victim. So our team is really trying their best po to save as many people as we can po.
Sir, baka sakali lang. I mean, so far, we've gotten word of at least 2 fatalities being Filipino. May nababalitaan po ba tayo na iba nating kababayan dyan?
Actually, sir, we just coordinated po with the local authorities po in Adiyaman. Based from their verbal reports po, wala pong Filipino local po dun sa sector po na minomonitor at ina-assess po ng team ngayon. So thankfully po, wala naman po tayong kababayan na nandun sa site as far as we know po ngayon. We are still looking for other information po na pwede naming magamit para po sa pag-locate po. Pero ayun nga po, as of this time po, wala pong Filipino dun sa site namin.
Hey, Angelo, I've been hearing reports also that it's terribly cold there in Turkey. How's the situation there for you guys? And I also heard that there might be a switch in contingency. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes po. As of yesterday po, the Department of National Defense received an advisory po that there will be no second team deploying here in Turkey. As for the weather po, ayun po, you're correct po. As you can see po, naka-winter clothing po kami. And kung nakita niyo po yung background ko, malakas po yung hangin. Last night po, umabot po kami ng -4. The worst we encountered po was on our first day, which is February 9 ng morning po, umabot kami ng -8. So it's really cold po. Yung hangin po ay tuyo, so nakaka-dry po talaga siya. Then, isa pong challenge natin, paggabi, minsan po nagkakaroon tayo ng challenges with our heater, though nagawa naman po ng paraan. Pero ayun nga po, this is new for us kasi tayo sa Philippines po, when we handle and we respond to a disaster event, hindi tayo maabot sa ganitong weather situation. So this is a challenging scenario for the whole team po.
How about the looting, Angelo? Because we've been also hearing reports about that. How bad is the looting there?
Yes, dito po sa area natin sa Adiyaman po, we received reports po from the local police po that there were reports nga po ng looting. Thankfully po, when the team arrived, we directly coordinated with the local authorities, and actually po our staging area in Adiyaman, in our sector po, is located at the local police station. So our team po secured our equipment and secured. And so far po, when we conduct our search and rescue operations po on the ground, we are accompanied by the local authorities and the police po, so that yung people po, yung mga bystanders po, tsaka po yung mga family members po na nanonood po at nagbabantay ng ginagawang activity ng USAR team natin, hindi po sila na babother po, hindi po sila na di-disturb po. So far po, very cooperative po yung localities po dito. We haven't experienced any kind of incident po para ma-compromise po yung safety at security po ng team.
Okay, maraming salamat po. That was Angelo Mangawang, Liaison and Logistics Officers of the Philippine Interagency Humanitarian Contingent in Turkey, or Turkiye, as it now prefers to be referred to. The big story will return. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching The Big Story and we're back just in time to greet you a happy Valentine's Day.
Advance, nauna kami. Tomorrow, that's tomorrow, happening tomorrow.
Happy
What are your plans?
Ikaw, inunahan mo ka. Happy Valentine's Day sa'yo.
Inunahan na kita kasi nag-chopper na ako.
Hindi. Nauna na kami. We celebrated even as a family over the weekend. So inuna na namin. Actually, ano yan anniversary kasi ng parents-in-law ko. So yan usually yung tradition namin.
Yeah. For me, every day is Valentine's Day.
Love
your work every day.
Out of time na yata. Out of time na.
And that's the big story tonight.
For more updates, follow News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. You may also log on to onenews.ph for more in-depth analysis. Ako po si Robbie Alampay.
The Big Star is also available via Signal Play app. Make a free account now at signalplay.com and stream One News anytime, anywhere. Po si Gretchen Ho, stay safe, Philippines.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.